You know what I realized after 22 years of sitting with thousands of people in therapy? The ones who seem to have it all together, the high achievers, the ones everyone relies on, they are often the loneliest people in the room. And the loneliness does not come from being alone. It comes from something far more painful. It comes from abandoning yourself so completely that you do not even recognize the person staring back at you in the mirror anymore. I am Dr. Hannah, and today I want to talk to you about something that might make you uncomfortable. I want to talk about the exhausting performance of perfection and why the most courageous thing you will ever do is allow yourself to be beautifully, messily, authentically imperfect. Here is what I see in my practice every single day. I see brilliant, capable people who have mastered every external measure of success, yet they are drowning in a sea of their own making. They have spent so long being what everyone else needed them to be that they have completely lost touch with who they actually are. And the cost? The cost is devastating. It shows up as chronic exhaustion that no amount of sleep can fix. It shows up as anxiety that hums beneath the surface of every interaction. It shows up as a voice inside that says you are never quite enough, no matter how much you achieve or how much you give. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. Perfectionism is not about excellence. It is not about having high standards or being ambitious. Perfectionism is a survival strategy. It is armor. It is the belief that if you can just be flawless enough, productive enough, agreeable enough, helpful enough, then you will finally be safe. You will finally be loved. You will finally be worthy. But here is the truth that perfectionism will never tell you. That safety is an illusion, that love is conditional, and that worthiness has been yours all along. Not because of what you do, but because of who you are. I worked with a woman once, let me call her Sarah. Sarah was a corporate executive, mother of 3, volunteer at her kids' school, always the first to offer help to anyone who needed it. On paper, her life looked perfect. But when she sat down in my office for the first time, she looked at me with tears in her eyes and said something I will never forget. She said, "I do not know who I am anymore. I have become a collection of roles and responsibilities, and somewhere along the way, I disappeared." Sarah had spent so many years shaping herself to fit everyone else's expectations that she had completely abandoned her own needs, her own desires, her own voice. She had become a stranger to herself. And here is what I want you to understand. This is not weakness. This is not failure. This is what happens when you grow up in a world that rewards compliance and punishes authenticity. This is what happens when you learn early on that your value is tied to your usefulness, your likability, your ability to make other people comfortable. This is what happens when the message you internalize is that who you really are is somehow not quite good enough. So you start performing. You start editing yourself. You start showing up as the version of you that you think people will accept, rather than the version that is actually true. And at first, it works. People praise you. They rely on you. They tell you how together you are, how strong you are, how lucky they are to have you. But underneath all of that external validation, something inside you starts to wither. Because performing is exhausting. Because being perfect is impossible. Because pretending to be someone you are not is a form of slow self-betrayal that eventually catches up with you. I want to share something with you that changed everything for me in my work. The people who come to me seeking help are not broken. They are not defective. They are not too sensitive or too much or too anything. They are people who have been brave enough to look in the mirror and admit that something is not working anymore. They are people who are ready to stop performing and start living. And that takes more courage than any achievement on a resume ever could. The journey back to yourself begins with a radical act. It begins with giving yourself permission to be imperfect. Not as a concept, not as something you nod along to and then ignore, but as a daily practice. It begins with asking yourself a question that might feel dangerous at first. What would change if I stopped trying to be perfect and started trying to be real? Because here is what I have learned in 22 years of this work. Authenticity is not about suddenly sharing every thought and feeling with everyone around you. It is not about being reckless or selfish or abandoning your responsibilities. Authenticity is about developing an honest relationship with yourself first. It is about getting quiet enough to hear what your body is telling you, what your emotions are signaling, what your intuition is whispering, beneath all the noise of expectation and obligation. It is about learning to trust that the truth of who you are is not something that needs to be fixed or improved or hidden away. It is something worth knowing and honoring and protecting. Let me give you something practical. If you are someone who has spent years people-pleasing and self-abandoning, reconnecting with your authentic self will feel uncomfortable at first. Your nervous system has been trained to prioritize other people's comfort over your own truth. So, when you start to set boundaries, when you start to say no, when you start to show up as your real self rather than your performed self, your body might send you alarm signals. You might feel guilt. You might feel anxiety. You might feel like you are doing something wrong. But I need you to understand something crucial. That discomfort is not a sign that you are on the wrong path. It is a sign that you are breaking old patterns. It is a sign that you are growing. It is a sign that you are reclaiming parts of yourself that have been hidden for far too long. One of the most powerful things you can do is start paying attention to the moments when you edit yourself. Notice when you soften your opinion in a meeting because you do not want to rock the boat. Notice when you agree to plans you do not actually want because saying no feels too hard. Notice when you minimize your own feelings because someone else's seem bigger or more important. These moments are data. They are showing you where you have learned to abandon yourself. And once you can see the pattern, you can start to change it. I had a client once who told me that learning to be authentic felt like learning to speak a new language. She said for so long she had been translating everything through the filter of what other people wanted to hear, and now she was learning to speak her own truth directly. It was awkward at first. It felt clunky. But over time, it became the most natural thing in the world. Because the truth is always easier to remember than a performance. The truth does not require mental gymnastics or constant vigilance. The truth just is. And here is something beautiful that happens when you start showing up authentically. The right people stay. The people who love you for who you actually are, not for what you can do for them. Those people do not go anywhere. In fact, they often feel relieved because when you give yourself permission to be imperfect, you give them permission too. You create space for real connection, the kind that is built on truth rather than performance. And yes, some people might fall away. Some people might be uncomfortable with the new boundaries you are setting or the new honesty you are bringing. But those departures are not losses. They are corrections. They are making room for relationships that actually nourish you rather than drain you. Let me be clear about something. Embracing imperfection does not mean giving up on growth. It does not mean settling for less than you deserve, or abandoning your goals or lowering your standards. It means separating your worth from your productivity. It means understanding that you can be a work in progress and still be worthy of love and belonging right now, exactly as you are. It means recognizing that your value is inherent, not earned. It was given to you the moment you were born, and nothing you do or fail to do can take it away. I think about this work as coming home to yourself. For so many years, you have been a visitor in your own life, trying to be a good guest, following all the unspoken rules, never taking up too much space, never asking for too much, never being too much. But this is your life. You are not a guest here. You are not an afterthought or an inconvenience or something that needs to be managed and contained. You are the main character in your own story, and it is time to start acting like it. So, what does that look like practically? It looks like starting small. It looks like checking in with yourself throughout the day and asking, what do I actually need right now? Not what should I need, not what would make me look good, but what do I truly need? It looks like honoring your body when it asks for rest instead of pushing through with caffeine and willpower. It looks like expressing a preference, even a small one, instead of always defaulting to whatever everyone else wants. It looks like letting someone see you struggle instead of pretending you have it all figured out. It looks like being honest about your capacity instead of saying yes to everything and then resenting it later. These might seem like small things, but they are not. They are revolutionary acts of self-loyalty. They are you saying, I matter, my needs matter, my truth matters. And every time you choose authenticity over performance, every time you choose self-compassion over self-criticism, every time you choose to honor your own experience instead of abandoning it for someone else's comfort, you are building a different kind of life. You are building a life where you get to be a whole person, not just a collection of roles and responsibilities. You are building a life where you get to know yourself, not just the version of yourself that you think the world will accept. You have spent so much of your life trying to be perfect for other people. What would it feel like to be imperfect for yourself? To give yourself the grace and compassion you freely give others? To look at yourself with the same kindness you extend to the people you love? That is not selfish. That is survival. That is how you stop burning out and start coming alive. That is how you stop disappearing and start showing up. That is how you reclaim the life that has been waiting for you all along. You do not need to have it all figured out. You do not need to be further along than you are. You do not need to be anything other than exactly who you are right now, imperfect, human, beautifully, courageously, authentically you. And that is more than enough. That has always been enough. Welcome home.